This week, Saudi Arabia has been accused of killing dozens of Ethiopian migrants trying to cross the border. The pressure group Human Rights Watch reports Saudi Arabian frontier guards used explosives against some migrants, including women and children, and shot others at close range. Meanwhile, Libyan security forces have been rescuing dozens of West African migrants who were apparently rounded up and abandoned in the deserts by Tunisian authorities. Some migrants who use Tunisia as a migration route have died from exhaustion and thirst in 50 degrees of heat. Arise News chief correspondent John Cookson has this story.
The deserts of North Africa are unforgiving places. The furnace heat here spares no one. These migrants, dumped without shelter, food and water, would surely have perished but for Libyan border guards rescuing them. This man dying from thirst and exhaustion survived, but it was a close thing. These West African migrants, some from Nigeria, claim they were rounded up by security forces after racial tensions in Tunisia flared last month and were abandoned to fend for themselves on the frontier with Libya. Survivors are now camped outside the UN's migration agency in Tunis. They told me they were beaten up and tear-gassed after the Tunisian president made a racially motivated speech, claiming his country was being overrun with black Africans. Conditions here are just the worst. There's no sanitation, there's no food deliveries. If people want to eat, they have to go onto the streets of Tunis and beg, and at the same time run the risk of being attacked by Tunisian police. All the migrants had a story of violence, including 24-year-old Wisdom from Lagos.
So some of us are taking the risk just to go to Europe and get a better life. Some of us are taking the risk back to their country. Some died in desert, some are nowhere to be found. Some died in the water. I wish we have work in this country. I don't think that some of us will be thinking about going to Europe.
Well, how long are you going to stick this out? What are you going to do with yourself? You're a young man, you have a life.
I have a life. That is where I'm working, the wickedness of this country. Look at what they did to my leg.
Is that the Tunisian police?
Yeah, the Tunisian police. I went to fast to work. They saw me and my wife coming back from hospital just to check up. They picked me up and dropped in desert. A pregnant woman. Now we are back here and no medication, nothing. We asked for medication before they will get to us. Maybe someone have died, or something have gone wrong.
What's your message?
My message to people out there that they should find a means to help us. We are suffering.
But Tunisian President Kais Saied is steadfast about his anti-black African stance. There's a campaign by criminal networks that traffic in human beings who aim not only to make money, but also to destabilize Tunisia, he said. I found Joseph from Liberia stranded with his family and baby.
First, I was living in Tunisia, good, there was no problem, there was no racist, let me say. Everything was fine, but when I came, when the president gave speech, everything changed.
That was in February?
Yeah, February.
Has it got better since then?
No, since February, I came here and I'm sleeping on the street. Every day things are getting worse because even I'm sick, I don't have the chance to go to the hospital. So everything is difficult for us.
Tunisian government and UN officials haven't responded to an Arise News request for an interview about attacks on black African migrants. Meanwhile, rights groups say that up to 150 forcibly displaced migrants, including women and children, are still stuck on the border with Libya, short of food, water, and any hope of immediate rescue. John Cookson, Arise News, Tunisia.
And John Cookson has returned from Tunisia and joins us now live from London for more on this. Now, John, why do you think the Tunisian government dumped West African migrants on the borders with Libya and Algeria?
Hi there, great to be on Newsday. Yes, I got back from Tunisia this morning. A wicked thing to do, an evil thing to do, knowing that without food, water, and any shelter in the desert, people are going to die, and they did. So, why has President Kais Saied done this? He's made speeches already this year saying that black Africans are infiltrating his country and trying to take over from the predominantly Arab population. And this is a speech that seems to chime with the Tunisian people. So he feels that he can get away with deporting black African migrants to the border, knowing that or believing that he has public support. And also the US and the EU will tut a little bit about it, but they won't do much more than give him a rap over the knuckles, because both the EU and the US depend on a stable Tunisia and a Tunisia that can stop the relentless surge of African migrants coming from countries like Sudan and even closer to home, Egypt. A lot of others from West Africa, as you saw in my report from Nigeria too. There is just the country is just in places being overwhelmed with migrants, and as I say, deporting them to the border with Algeria or Libya is a terrible thing to do, but he believes that for all the reasons I've just said, that he can get away with it.
All right, then. Thank you, John, for that. It's been 10 years after, the protests sparked the Arab Spring, and Tunisia remains the lone country in the Middle East to have effectively changed its system of governance. Yet many Tunisians have mixed feelings about how much progress their country has made. What's going on in Tunisia today, a decade after the Arab Spring?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in the more than 10 years since then, the Tunisian economy is on the brink of collapse. When I was there, it was very clear to me that how things are so expensive for ordinary folk to buy. Everything is cash these days. I could use a credit card in a hotel, but beyond that, everything was cash. And for example, a Tunisian taxi driver tried to charge me 30 euros to come from the airport to downtown, where the fare is actually 10 euros at best. Ordinary Tunisian people are having a difficult time. Politically, the president is getting more autocratic. He's jailed a number of political opponents, and as I say, the biggest problem is the economy, which is really teetering at the moment. A young man recently set fire to himself in Tunisia, echoing what happened back in 2010, when famously a fruit seller self-immolated himself to spark the Arab Spring. So things are very, very difficult in Tunisia at the moment.
Indeed, John. Now, still, the Tunisian president says his country has been overrun with migrants. In reality, has it?
In the capital, not so much. The capital is virtually migrant-free in the downtown areas. Go a little bit out of town, like I was at the migrant center, and you find black African migrants congregating there, camping out on the streets. Tomorrow I'll bring you a report from Sfax in southern Tunisia, where the situation is completely different. Again, the center of Sfax is migrant-free, but all around in the parks and minor towns around Sfax, there are thousands and thousands of mostly black African migrants, a lot of them from Sudan, of course, following the reaction to the problems there that Sudan is facing, but also from Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, Nigeria too. There are thousands of people in Sfax, all, of course, waiting to make that crossing across the Mediterranean, the most dangerous crossing point, migrant crossing point in the world, preparing to pay $500 to people smugglers to get them across the Mediterranean from Sfax to Italy, or as near another near country in Europe. I'll have that report tomorrow.
Before we let you go, John, what more can you tell us about the disturbing news that the Saudi Arabian border guards are shooting at migrants?
They certainly are. I mean, they're killing migrants in cold blood. These are migrants from Ethiopia escaping violence in Tigray. They crossed over into Yemen, and from Yemen you can quite easily, relatively easily, get into Saudi Arabia, and this is where the killings took place. I've crossed that border myself. It's a mountainous region. There are not many border guards, but suddenly the Saudi Arabians have decided to stop migrants using that crossing point and have slaughtered probably dozens of migrants, mostly from Ethiopia. There are around 750,000 Ethiopians already in Saudi Arabia, and presumably the Saudi Arabians saying, that's it, that's enough, but they've taken these drastic, terrible measures. And it's interesting, is it not, that Saudi Arabia is currently fating the world by whitewashing some human rights violations in Saudi Arabia by importing famous footballers like Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar. There's a World Expo in Saudi Arabia in 2030. And the Saudi Arabians, after the Khashoggi murder, of course, recently trying to improve its image, and yet suddenly, out of the blue, they take these drastic steps against migrants who are really just trying to find a way from violence and escaping to Saudi Arabia, but getting shot in the process.
Indeed, a terrible ordeal for the migrants. John Cookson, many thanks for your perspective on Tunisia and, of course, Saudi Arabian migrant issues. Good to have you.